Hello guys, I'm Super Ron, welcome back to the channel, and this week we're back at Auto Shack and we are back on the B3 Passat. We saw this in a previous episode, and although it's very subtle on the outside, we found this was hiding a 350 horsepower turbocharged secret. Because this is equipped with a 1.8 turbocharged engine. You saw in the previous episode I fitted the brand new Pulsar Turbo. It's a GT2867R ball bearing hybrid turbo, and it is run on aftermarket management via an Emerald ECU, so it is fully mappable. So I'm not sure whether it is a homemade conversion or a few different people have been in here, but when I was fitting the turbo, I did see quite a lot of things that weren't really up to Super Ron spec. So I made a little list and advised the customer on a few things, and he has got back to me and said, yep, do them. So we've got some water pipes to make. We've got a lot of messy wiring. It's all here and working, but it would not be reliable. There's things that are just hanging, uninsulated terminals everywhere. It all needs going through. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get this engine bay up to Super on spec. So if we just take this radiator cover off, I'll show you the first thing I noticed, and that is the fan wiring. We have got some more house connectors, just like we found in the RS6. These are on the fan wiring for some reason. I don't know if it had been extended or joined, not sure, but obviously they're going to go. And down the back, I'm not sure whether this is lambda. I've got to trace where this goes, but we've got a load of Wagos connectors. So maybe a house electrician wired this car up. So I'll find out what they do. But we've got a lot of rogue wires, we've got relays, lots of wiring. This didn't have a boost controller, so it's had an N75 put in. It's got the map sensor here. That's the reverse switch, just chilling out. So although it all works, it's just got a lot of wiring bound up, cable tied together. We've got bits zigzagging. We've got this white wire that starts here, comes all the way along here, up here, up here, up here, up there, to the boost controller. So instead of going from there to there, that for some reason goes all the way around here, all the way around. It looks like it's using the original VW loom for everything. This is all original VW. So I reckon it's got an Emerald conversion block. So I'll have a look at that. But it's just going to be a case of tidying everything up. We'll rewrap all the looms, all the extra bits. So the first bit is going to be a bit of investigation, actually working out what everything does and where it goes and why. And then we can route it all a little bit nicer. The other thing we have got to sort is the radiator pipes, because the bottom one is so tight, the radiator is actually hanging on it and it's not actually on anything. So under here we've got some metal cable ties, and that's what's holding the radiator in. It isn't actually in its points at the bottom, so we'll sort all that out. I'm going to make a new bottom rad hose, but the standard ECU would go up there, so I assume that's where the Emerald is. So let's take these covers off and see where the ECU actually is. So under this scuttle, it looks like it should go all the way, but it's broken in the middle. There's these little tabs. And here is our Emerald. And here is our conversion loom. There's the... And what's this? A Euro car parts bag full of wires. So let's find out what this is for. So under here, this is the original 1.8 turbo loom, both sides of the ECU plug, and this is where the ECU normally sits in here. The standard VW ECU plugs in there. What Emerald do is they make this little conversion adapter, so you can plug your plugs in there, then all the loom goes back, and that plugs into the Emerald plug. So it's a nice plug and play conversion. Everything you need is here. Literally just plug in and go. So there are some extras added in. We've got to find out what all these do. We've got wires that run over here. Oh, that runs all the way over there. So like this one runs along here, out, under here, along here, along there, disappears under there. So these are all the wires that we've got to trace. I think that goes into the car maybe, and route them nicely and of course safely. Because it's not just a safety issue, obviously it could be a fire hazard, it's more of a reliability issue. If you've got wires tight everywhere, especially on an engine like this where it's going to be super hot in the engine bay, with that top mounting turbo, you're going to have wires melting, you're going to have wires pulling, and that leads to reliability problems. So I think if you took this to a rolling road in its current state, they'd quite possibly refuse it because of all the faults around. They wouldn't want to be held liable for if anything happens. I mean, if someone came up to my rolling road with a bag full of wires, I think I'd be a little bit apprehensive as well. But looking in here, I see straight away, these ones are CAN bus wires, I know. Everything is labelled. And I think they were just wires they weren't sure what to do with. We've got lambda probe heater, dash processor, open, CAN bus, lambda probe, 12 volts, clutch pedal switch, airflow meter. So I think these are just all the ones not used, but they didn't want to snip them off just in case we did need them. But I know we don't need these, so we can get rid of all this mess. We've got some more teed in here, speedo, fuel pump relay, engine speed. So the RPM and the speedo does work. So maybe there's some outputs from the Emerald going direct up to the dash. I think that's for the signal wire. We'll check our pins, check our wiring diagrams, but a lot of this can go. And that is something that's going to tidy it up no end. It's just getting rid of all the stuff you don't actually need. Because it's on aftermarket management, you don't need all the lambda sensors, you don't need the airflow meter, you don't need the factory speedo, you certainly don't need the CAN bus. So all of this can go and it will make a big difference in the bay. Then we can wrap this up a bit nicer. Something I've just spotted actually. We've got two ECUs. This is the Emerald on top. We've still got the 2 litre 8 valve ECU under there. If you move this, this is the factory ECU plug. Just like on the Mark III we did the other month, we've still got the factory ECU plugged in. So I don't know if that's actually running anything or whether that's just left in there. As we know, knowledge is power. And at the moment, I haven't got a lot of knowledge. So I'm going to do some investigating and find out what is actually connected and what is actually working. And then I'll let you know. So before we take it apart, let's see what actually works. So we've got battery light, no oil pressure light. Rev counter works. And we've got this rev counter down here. Do we have speedo? We're off the floor. Yeah, so speedo's connected. So now let's work out how they're connected. Oh no, we have got oil pressure. Can't really see it though. But apparently that's reading 90 psi cold start. And we've got a boost gauge. I don't know what this is for. So there's the Emerald ECU pulled out. We've got our VW ECU still under there, and this is the conversion loom. So this is for the 1.8 turbo. It goes from there, all the pins, to the Emerald plug, and it's simple as that. It should be completely standalone, but we have got this rogue wire that's been tapped in, which goes along there somewhere. And then we've got the additional 3-bar map sensor, just as the upgrade. So let's start tracing these wires and find out why we're not completely standalone. Then we've got our ECU plugs, and that one goes that way, disappears in the car. This one goes straight back to the engine, so that should be untouched. A bit more house electrics just pulled out of there. Bit of 2-core live and neutral, not actually going anywhere. The gift that keeps on giving. Let's get rid of our Euro car parts bag. They did make an effort. It is sealed up and cable tied. Better than most people. Got some more loose ends over here. All of this was just bundled up, not going anywhere, so that can go. We've got more stuff. Another loose end going under here. And that goes. We've got some more stuff under here. More bits there. That's the oil pressure light. That one might go to the alternator maybe. Oh, that doesn't go anywhere now. Let's untangle this because we've got black wires everywhere. We've got more up here. The one that came from the top there runs all the way around in here. Then I think that might go in the car maybe. Got to find out what they do and tidy this up. And I've just opened this up, and what do we have? A spare spanner. So that must be for quick release battery terminals. Lives in there nice and warm. So there was an earth point on the battery that didn't go anywhere, and another one of these wires that runs all the way along there, along there, along there, and then disappears into the car is actually for the battery light. But the factory battery light wire is just here chopped off. That sits down there for the starter motor. You've got the battery light wire there, the blue one, just needs to go to the alternator there. But instead that now goes all the way around, up, wiggles around and through a hole in the bulkhead. So I'll double check whether that one is still live and get rid of that, because then we can go all the way through. Alright, just followed where the Wagos go, and they go up to this loom, all the way round, all the way back up to the bulkhead, and they tap in here. And these wire colours are vehicle speed sensor. Even though our vehicle speed sensor is here, right by it, it's been chopped up here, massively extended, Wagoed on, and now goes down into the speed sensor, down under the boost pipe. So we'll sort this out a little bit better and find out what the issues are. And what is this down here? So this is the vehicle speed sensor in the 1.8 turbo loom, and it looks like that was once connected up, but if you can see, it's had a little bit of a melted session. So maybe that's why they bypassed it with the Wagos up to the top. So that's less than ideal. Aha, just pulled it out. So this is our speedo sensor. Wagos all the way along, then joins up in the Passat loom up there. So quite a long example. So we've got a few more anomalies uncovered. This is the plug for the boost controller. So we've got green join, brown join, and then that goes into the 1.8 turbo loom. We've got the power feed cut off there, then it's got its own power feed in there, goes all the way around that white wire and links into this ignition live relay here. But the wire that they've cut off there, because it didn't have power, is actually right next to it in this plug here. And I've just done a continuity test, and that is still connected. So if they connected that wire up where that white wire goes, they wouldn't have to put that extra one in to here. They could have left the loom as standard. So I'll put that back how it was, because you don't want all this mess in a boost controller. When you've got a turbo that big, you need that to be spot on. The other thing is this relay here is controlled by ignition live, and that controls the coils and the injectors here. They've been hardwired in, which means all the time the ignition's on, the coils and the injectors have got power, and all the solenoids like the boost controller. So this should really be controlled by the ECU, and that has got an output for it. So I'll put that round, and that will be what controls all the ignition things. I did notice around here we have got a wire fuel pump relay, and that does go into the car, so that is being controlled by the ECU. So all that needs to do is control that relay as well. But as we look closer at the 1.8 turbo loom, these are all the power feeds and everything into the engine loom, and you can see everything is starting to wear through. We've got lots of wear throughs on the joins, and these are the main powers that go in, and I'm not sure whether they're actually fused. We'll have to look where it comes from. It has got one fuse that kind of controls that. That's our speedo wires, but they've been cut up here and run down. So there's just a lot of unneeded chopping. None of this needed to be chopped around. None of this needed to be chopped around. None of this needed to be chopped around. It's just like they've made a lot of hard work for themselves. Another little winner there. Got a Super Twister 5000. I think really what I'm going to do with all this is just chop it all off. I can make a much better job. We're not using most of these wires, so this plug isn't really necessary. What we can do, I just want the power for the coils, which is that purple, the earth, our powers for the injectors, and then our powers for our sensors. All of these are for the speedo, oil pressure and everything else, and that'll just get rid of all of this mess and these connections that are now wearing through. So that'll be the best source of action for that. Just chop it off and that will get rid of all of this. And then we'll just make a nice little relay, mount it probably under here, and then that will feed all the powers to the engine. So with great pleasure, see you later. And then it's just those three that we'll need. We'll use our ignition live that used to go to the relay. We'll take our power from the battery, power out there, and then that'll be switched by our ECU, which already has its fuel pump trigger. So we'll just tee into that. That'll run the relay. Much neater job. So I'll tidy up our speedo, tidy up our boost controller, tidy up our alternator. Oh, and we've just got to get rid of our electrical connectors here, but that's just a straight join, straight through. We don't need to put a plug on because there is the plug there. So I just need to join those back together. And actually, instead of running the oil pressure gauge back all the way around there like it was, and then into the sender there, we've got our standard oil pressure light. So that goes to the plug down there anyway. So we can plug that in and I'll run that way to keep it out of the bay. We've got our mystery house wires. So they just terminate into the fuse box, but they don't actually go anywhere. So that'll be a nice route through for me. And there's those connectors replaced with some proper automotive crimps. And then heat shrink them over. And all protected from the elements. So we'll take that up, get it back on. So with the ECU plug that had all them extra wires that were just in the carrier bag tucked up in the scuttle, which instead of taping up each one, because we have got some lives in here, we've got the lives that go out to the lambda sensors, the airflow meter, lots of other bits and pieces. To save taping every single one of them off, what I've been doing is just de-pinning it and taking the terminal out. So all you got to do is just click the little white bit over, and then with a terminal tool, you can just push them out. Poke it in, pull the wire. And that's what I've been doing for all of these, all the ones that are left over. Trim tool in, pull it out. And then we're just left with the couple of wires that we need. So we've got our power, earth and fuel pump trigger. That's all that comes in on this side of the ECU and connects to the car. That's just made it a lot more tidy with all that spaghetti now gone. I could have just taped them up, I could have just heat shrink it, but it would have been 20 quid's worth of heat shrink when we can actually eliminate them altogether. Now we just click the white bits back across and that locks in all the pins. Slot the cover back on. And we are ready to go. Much tidier than a carrier bag. So the ECU plugs are now ready to go back into our adapter, and I have just found an ECU, so you can see that's what the normal ECU looks like, and the plugs go into there. So it's an exact replica of that. I did wonder whether they just cut the ones off an ECU, but if you look at the end, it's actually got emeralds. This must be like a 3D printed bit, which is pretty cool, and then they just pin up to all the ones they need. So that's how you can use your standard loom, because your plugs just plug out of the ECU, plug into this one, and then you have fully mappable emerald management. So let's get this back in place, tidy it up a little bit, and then I've just got the relay to finish off. We've got a new plug-in for our speedo sensor, so that's a bit better than the Wagos. We've got our fan done, so we are getting somewhere. And our pile on the floor is getting bigger. And got this side all wrapped back up. So I haven't rewired anything completely, it's all doing the same thing, just a lot neater. Instead of our Wagos, we've got our little plug there for the speedo. We've still got our relay sitting in the front there, just looking a lot tidier. Instead of having everything just dumped on the front there, we've now got our inline fuse for all the engine there, and that runs up to the relay. So everything is back in its place. We've got the boost controller up there, all fully rewired and plumbed in. Everything's just secured and looking a lot better. So now with our bottle back in that corner, it's looking a lot less homemade. So it's got a few bits to finish down the front. Just got the wire to go in for our alternator, and that'll get rid of all the wiring around that side. I couldn't find the correct plug for the O2J reverse sensor, but if you take the surround off, because it's got like a D-shaped one, it does actually slot straight into the original one. Doesn't click in, but it's in there pretty well. So that's a nice little solution. So we should have reverse lights. Full spec. And that is everything all back together. So we've got all our controls, got our map sensor, got our ignition controller and our main relay sitting there. Got our ECU bolted in and our conversion loom back up there. We've got all our start, charge and reverse wires all done down there. We're completely clear of wires down this side. So by my calculations, unless we've forgotten something, it should fire up. The battery is a bit flat, so we've got this jump pack from REWIRE, and that has actually performed really well. It fired up my RS6 this morning because that was flat, and hopefully that'll fire us up. So in here, still a bit of a mess. I took the boost gauge and everything off because it wasn't working, and found a bit of a spaghetti in there. Same under there. This is our tacho box for the rev counter conversion, and there's a few other loose ends to tidy up in here. But what I found is the gauges, they were really dark earlier because it was missing an earth. I've put an earth on and now they all light up much better. So we've got our battery light in, that's working. Let's see if it fires up. It's alive. Battery light's gone on. We can see now, so we've got 50 psi of oil pressure. Decent oil pressure. Boost gauge is working. Rev counters are all working. Everything's working. And just before we wrap everything up, because we have got the software, we can tap into Emerald, double check that everything is working. Air temperature 21 degrees, coolant temperature 23, map pressure, voltage, fire it up. We're charging, everything is looking good. Everything is happy. So wiring wise, we are all good to go. So I'll put the covers back on and then we can start looking at this plumbing and mounting the radiator. I've just taken off the mask and without that funny grille, these look like just a normal period correct Audi VW. So it's quite strange they chose to put this weird grille on. But under here I've just snipped the cable ties off because that's what was holding the rad in place. So now I'll try and get that mounted. Yeah, certainly a strange concept from VW with this one, especially seeing as the whole of the top of the radiator doesn't get any airflow. Also, when I took the grille out, we found another tool. This rolled out from under the headlight. So we've got a DeWalt 10mm. We'll add that to his collection. So the massive winding header tank route that used to go all the way around here, I've took this out, put just a straight joiner, join these back together so the coolant comes out of the turbo back into the rail, and what did come this way and go all the way around only needs to tee in here and that'll go into the bottom rail here. So that just keeps things a lot more tidy, and now we can get rid of that out the way, and it's made everything here look a lot better. So I've just started chopping down some elbows to make up a bottom hose, and that'll be our coolant system wrapped up as well. Just made up a couple little tabs to move the radiator forward, so that'll bolt where the radiator used to mount, then the radiator will now sit on there, so that'll just give us the clearance we need. We'll get this in. There it is fitted on, so it just moved the point forward a bit. They bolted through the old holes, and now the radiator sits in those bits. So that's moved it back that far, allowing us to have the clearance we need here. And we've still got loads of room at the front for the intercooler. Nice little easy mod. So let's make some top brackets. So I took the headlights out for a bit more access, and then just made a nice little bracket in there. That bolts on behind the headlight there. Another one this side, bolts on there, so they'll be hidden. Now our radiator is actually mounted and not just hanging on some cable ties. I can now measure up the bottom water pipes. I think the top one will be alright to go back on. Fan clears because that was rubbing on the bottom panel, and we're all clear of our water pipes and clear of our plug at the back. So much better. So let's get this plumbed in and then we can fill it back up. And there's the top rad hose on as well. Just use 2 elbows, put the clips on, got the bottom one in. That's just another 2 elbows with a joiner. So that looks much better, because when I looked at the top hose, that actually had a split in it, so that was leaking from there. And this is the bottom one, which I've replaced with 290s, so you can see what an angle that was at, and that was just hanging down there. Now we're looking much better. So I'll get the covers back on and we can fill it up with coolant. And there's the top end all back together, covers back on. You can see these fit nice and straight now. We haven't got all that extra hose that runs all the way around here. As I was just running it up, I was just having a little look at the fuel lines, and I saw they're all cracked and perished on the corner, so I thought we'd renew them. And I've just slid the joiners on, and there's no barbs on them, so 3 bar of fuel pressure was just held on with a bit of friction, so that could have popped off and been an awful trouble right next to the turbo. So we're going to put new fuel hose from here right to the rail, and that will solve the perished fuel lines and those dodgy joiners. So just had it all up and running and everything was working. We had it all reading on the computer. The only thing that wasn't working was the speedo. So I took the speedo drive back out, and as we saw earlier, it's been kind of chopped around, modified, and one of the wires has just come off. So I'm going to stop messing around with this. They're just going to keep breaking. What we have got is what it should actually look like. So it should have a plug on the end like that. So as you can see, they've just chopped that off and soldered them straight on. We've got the plug to go on there, so that'll be a plug-in bit. So what I'll do is just put our plug on the other end. Now it'll be a plug and play, but it'll actually connect, and that should get our speedo working. Like so. So we've got the VW plug that end and the plug I put on that end. So now we can put this in, screw it in, and then plug it in properly. And as if by magic, we have a speedo again. There's new fuel lines on, looking much better. No joining it now, goes all the way to the plastic lines that go to the back of the car. So that's them replaced. But job escalation again, the coolant pipe that goes from the turbo down here, when I remove the fuel lines, I could see that that's worn through and that's gone right through to the braid. So that was just about to pop. And that was in there just where the fuel lines were. So put a new coolant hose in there as well. So that is this all done. And overall now, I think that looks a much better bay. All that loose wiring and the messy hoses and everything that was coiled up over here has all gone, so that all looks tidier. All the wiring looms and the plugs and the mess that was down there is all gone. All the mess that was up the back wall has gone. No more Wagos anymore. No more electrical connectors. No more hanging radiators or stretched hoses. Everything now fits in there really, really nice. And it's completed this car nicely. It just needed some tidying. And now that is a bay that looks cool, sounds cool, and goes cool. And all of this can go in the bin. So I think we can wrap up this episode. I'm really happy with how the bay has turned out. It was quite a lot more involved than I originally thought. I thought we were just going to be tidying up a little bit of wiring, but the more you dig in, the more things you find and the more things you have to do. And then when you start getting those doubts of finding twisty wires everywhere, you have to go around and check every single piece of tape, just in case that is a failure point for the future. Because I could do all this loom, all really nice, but there could be one wire that I didn't check, and if that falls apart, kills the whole thing. So I just needed to go through, check every single wire. We've got bucket loads of wire out that didn't need to be there, because knowledge is power. So if we knew in the loom that it wasn't needed, it could be gone. We made these suggestions to the customer in the last video when I did the turbo, and I'm really glad he did take us up on the job, because if this went to the dyno, we could have had all sorts of problems, and in the long run, dyno time is expensive. So if they were fault finding and trying to find wiring problems, that would cost him a lot more than us doing it beforehand. So now we're going to recommend getting the ECU all mapped on the rollers, get the new turbo dialed in, and get the whole package complete. And it'll be really interesting to see what the numbers come out at. And like I said in the last video, I am a big fan of these Passats, and now this one should be nice and reliable, and still an absolute sleeper. You'd never expect this thing to be producing 350 horsepower. So make sure you give this video a like. We'll be on the next project in the next episode, so make sure you tune in to find out what it is. But until then, make sure you have fun.